Hey everyone, welcome to Anyone Can Cook with Lauren. I am Lauren, and today we're going to be making some lobster mac and cheese. This is a super simple mac and cheese recipe, and you can put whatever protein you want in it. I even put diced summer squash in it sometimes, roasted squash. But lobster tails were on sale, so today we're going to put some lobster in our mac and cheese. So the purpose of this channel is to kind of help people who are just learning how to cook. Maybe you didn't have someone growing up to help you learn how to cook or teach you. And this is just some basic life skills here, some super easy recipes, maybe slightly more complicated as we kind of learn together and grow together a little bit. But I know a lot of you are probably going off to college, maybe you have families, and you just want to be able to cook good meals for your family that are easy for you to do or affordable for you to do too. So for our mac and cheese here, I have about 2 cups of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. I shredded the cheese myself. You can use pre-shredded if you want. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but it was BOGO this week, so blocks of cheese it is. We have a 1/4 cup of parmesan here, and then a teaspoon each of salt, black pepper, and garlic powder, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. That's kind of the secret sauce in this mac and cheese. It gives it a really, really, really nice earthy flavor to it. And it really complements the sharpness of the cheese really well. Then we have 2 Maine lobster tails here. They're kind of on the smaller side, but we are going to boil these lobster tails until they are nice and bright red and the meat is white and not see-through anymore. After that, we'll let them cool, we'll break them open, get the lobster all cut up. So first and foremost, what we're going to do is we're going to plop these lobster tails over on the stove in that big boiling pot of water. I lightly salted the water too. That way they have a little bit of flavor. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to plop them right in. All right. All right, so those lobster tails are in there. And you want to give it enough time to cook, so about 4 to 5 minutes for these smaller tails if they're thawed. If they're frozen, they'll probably take closer to 10 to 12 minutes. So you just want to keep an eye on them. You don't want it to overcook. You want to make sure you take them off the heat once they are cooked. All right, so right now we are going to go and we're going to put our pasta in the pot and get that cooking as well. All right, so our lobster tails are going to be done here in 1 second. Before we get those out of the pot, we are going to go ahead and put our pasta in the water here. I have a pot full of boiling salted water. This pasta is cavatappi. You will see that it has the spiral shape to it. It is kind of just like elbow noodles, but like bigger. You can use elbow noodles if you want. You can use bow ties if you want as well. I prefer to use this one just because it gives you a lot more to grab onto, and it grabs onto the cheese sauce a lot better. So we're going to go ahead and dump that in here. This is about half a box. And this is going to be enough to serve about 3 to 4 people. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there. And let's see, we will set a timer here. We're going to do it for 12 minutes. I know that's not al dente, but I'm not a fan of al dente all that much. So while that is in there, we're going to go ahead and turn this front burner on as well. And this is going to be the burner for our cheese sauce. So we're going to put that on medium heat or so. And our lobster tails are finished. So we're going to go ahead and take them out. And you see here they're that nice bright red color. You really want that with the Maine lobster tails, and the meat is white. So we're going to just put them in this little bowl here that I have of ice water. And that's going to stop them from cooking anymore. That way the meat doesn't become really tough. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to leave those. We're just going to set them aside. And then for our cheese sauce here, we have a 1/3 cup of butter in here. So if you have the sticks of butter with the little measuring icons on them, that's about 5 tablespoons plus 1/3 of another tablespoon. That equals a 1/3 cup of butter. If you use the whole stick, it would be a 1/2 cup. So you don't want to do that. So I have a little whisk here. Okay. And we're just going to make sure that that butter is nice and melted. And have that on the medium heat there, okay? And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making something called a roux. So a roux makes kind of like a paste out of flour and butter, and that's going to thicken your sauce. So you want to make sure that when we put the flour in, we do cook it all the way through, or else it's going to be a little bit gummy. So I have here, for the base of our sauce, a 1/3 cup of flour as well. So the ratio to flour and butter is kind of the same. And then I have about 2 1/4 cups of milk here. So I used 2% milk mixed with some 50/50 because I didn't have any whole milk, but you can use whole milk as well. All right, so now that the butter is melted, I'm gonna let that heat up a little bit more until it's kind of bubbly, and then we'll go ahead and we'll add our flour. We'll start making our roux. All right, so our butter is bubbling now. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna start adding in the flour. So you just wanna add it in a little at a time and stir it. That way it's not gonna clump, it's not gonna burn, but you wanna do it pretty evenly. So once that's all mixed in, you just add a little more. And it's already starting to kind of thicken up here. Okay, a little more, usually about 4 times. You'll add, same with the milk, you're gonna add it in 4 to 5 parts. Okay, last of the flour. All right. Yeah, and it's starting to really get thick here. But you want to make sure all the flour is cooked down because it can make the sauce a little gummy and you don't want to find any flour in your sauce later on. So once that is a nice kind of pasty consistency, looks a little bit like cake batter, we're going to go ahead and start adding our milk, a little at a time. So 1, you want to do it over the pan because you do not want to spill it all over the stove. I have done that before. And the first time it is going to get thick really quick. So you want to add it in quickly in the second row. Okay. And I prefer to use a whisk doing this. You can use a spoon if you want. I prefer a whisk because it's going to make it smoother. Okay. Part 3. It is going to start thickening up pretty good here. So you just want to make sure you keep stirring because it can clump up on you. Ooh, and it can also batter like that. Right. More milk. And this one's going to be added in 5 parts because it's a lot of milk in a shallow pot. So this pot here is actually pretty special. It looks like a regular plain old metal pot, and it is. But this pot was actually my grandmother's, and she is still with us. But she had this pot since she got married when she was 18. This is one of the first pots that they had. And she gave it to me when I moved out to go to college. So it's pretty special to me. All right, we're gonna add the rest of the milk. What? If you hear meowing, that is our cat Autumn. She is very chatty. And she's upset that I am making this instead of making her own food. All right, so once you have all of the milk mixed in here, you're gonna let it sit and kind of simmer until it starts to thicken a little bit for about 5 minutes or so. And then once that time is up, that's when we add in the rest of our ingredients. And it's perfect timing because we have 5 minutes left on our pasta as well. So you just wanna make sure that you keep stirring it pretty frequently. You don't have to stir it the whole time, but you don't wanna leave it because milk when it's boiling can bubble over very quickly. So you just wanna keep an eye on that. We also want to make sure we stir our pasta a little bit so it doesn't get stuck to the pot. All right, and we will check back in with this guy when it is time to add the cheese in. This is Autumn. She likes to talk and she likes to whine, especially when I'm not giving her her food. Sometimes she'll climb up when we're trying to cook, but tonight she's being gracious and not knocking everything over. All right, so our sauce base is done. So we're gonna go ahead and turn that burner off, and it looks like our pasta is done as well here in just a moment. So we're gonna go ahead and put that to the side, take that off the heat. Okay. And I turned the heat off for our base here. And you can see it's thickened up pretty nicely. So that is gonna be perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and just move this off of the burner. Okay. And we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add all of our spices and our parmesan. And just get that in there. Okay, and it does help to whisk that in first and then go in with the cheddar cheese because there is a lot in there. So let's get that all incorporated first. Give that a nice stir. Okay. And with this sauce, you can use really whatever cheese you want. You don't necessarily have to use cheddar. You can use Gruyere cheese, you can use Gouda cheese, you can use whatever cheese base you want. I like to use Colby Jack cheese sometimes, and I have used Gruyere cheese along with the Parmesan in this recipe before, and it is really, really good. Another awesome thing is Gruyere grilled cheese. So now that that is all mixed in, we're gonna go ahead and add in the cheddar. And fresh grated cheese can get a little sticky when it's warm. So you just want to try and get everything that you can. Okay, get off there. All right. So we're gonna go ahead, and if you want for this part, you can put it back on the warm burner just to help the cheddar melt a little bit better. It's not gonna make the sauce cook more or anything. It's just gonna keep it warm so that the cheese melts. And you can see it's starting to melt and starting to incorporate really nicely in there. I always love when I see the sauce turning orange. And in the fall, I do make this with roasted summer squash. It is super fun to make for like a fall party or a Halloween party. I personally love just roasted summer squash on its own, and we'll do that sometime here on the channel. And a little question of the day for all of you. What is your favorite thing to put in mac and cheese? Because everyone has one. We love putting hot dogs in mac and cheese. We have put kielbasa in mac and cheese, Portuguese sausage, chicken. You can pretty much put whatever you want. So let me know in the comments, you guys. All right, so our sauce here is nice and silky. So we're gonna leave it right here on the warm burner for a moment. We're gonna strain our pasta and we're gonna get our lobster tails cut up. All right, so we have our lobster tails here. They've been sitting in the ice water, so they're nice and cool to handle. The lobster meat will warm up in the sauce, so you don't have to worry about them being cold. It's a lot easier to handle and a lot safer to handle if they're not burning hot. I have done that before. It is not fun. So here I have some kitchen scissors. These are what I prefer to use to cut lobster tails open. If you want to, you can also use a knife. So with a knife, all you would do is you would start cutting from the base of the tail and you would go forward and just cut along the belly of the lobster there. Then you can just get the meat out of the shell. But I prefer using the kitchen scissors just because it's a little bit easier, and I can also use the kitchen scissors to cut the meat up. So what you'll want to do is just very carefully stick the kitchen scissors in the front there and just start slicing away. Just watch your hands, be very careful. You do not want to get your fingers. All right, once you have that done, you can go ahead and just split it open like that. And you'll see it wants to stick to the shell a little bit, but as you start to kind of peel the shell away, you can actually just go in there and grab the meat right out. Ta-da! You see how the meat has that nice reddish color there from the shell, and the meat is nice and white? That's how you know it's done. There's no clear meat left. It is completely done. And your hands will smell like lobster after this, so be prepared. But I love Maine lobster. It is one of my favorite things. Oh, this one got a little bit stuck at the end, but that's fine. That means that that meat is already ready. Right, so we'll set that aside here, and we'll go ahead and do it with the second one. I prefer using, if it's just the two of us, 2 to 4 lobster tails. If you have more people, you're definitely going to want to use more lobster tails, or you can also just get whole lobsters if it's available to you. And they'll steam them at the store for you too. You don't have to do that part at home. Some places will even break them up for you. They'll break the tail, the knuckles, so you can get the meat out at home. But I would definitely use some claw meat as well if you're going to be serving more than a couple of people, or even just for yourself, because the claw meat is very good. The problem right now is that claw meat can be expensive, and just unfortunately at the store for me, there were no whole lobsters at the time. All right. And be very careful for the pieces on the edges. You don't want to cut yourself. That is the lobster's self-defense after all. Even after it's been cooked, it is still trying to defend itself. But that's why lobsters are one of my favorite sea creatures. I've heard that they are biologically immortal, meaning the only way they can really die is if they get eaten. Or, you know, something like that. So, really cool. And my great-grandmother, every summer would have lobster parties. My great-grandfather's brothers were lobstermen. So they would be able to get us just crates full of lobster. And it was so much fun. Everyone was invited. Even people that you didn't even invite were invited. It was just one of those things where everybody showed up, and it was so much fun every summer. All right, so now I'm just going to cut the meat into little pieces. Nice little chunks. You know, not too small because you want to feel them in there. But just some good pieces. That's also why I like the kitchen scissors, because they just give a lot more control than a knife sometimes, depending on what you're making. We use kitchen scissors to help cut up the Thanksgiving turkey, cutting up all the wings and legs. All right, so now that I have all the lobster meat cut up, I'm gonna put this in the sauce. And I'm gonna let it simmer for a little bit. I am gonna turn that heat back on to low, let it simmer, let the lobster warm up. And then once that is all done, we will put our dish together. All right, we have our sauce here, all warmed up with the lobster in it, and I put the pasta in a nice serving dish here, and this is my favorite part, the cheese cascade. All right, so we're just gonna pour all of that on top. Oh, I love that. We've got a big old spoon here to make sure that we don't miss any of that good sauce. Just make sure you get as much of it as possible. All right, we can go ahead and mix all that up. See the nice velvety cheese sauce? That is what the roux does. It helps make this so that your sauce does not separate. It's super creamy and thick, and you have that nice pour of cheese. Because if you try and just do it with butter and milk without the flour, it's going to separate. And that's how I used to make it, and I would always get frustrated because it would separate until I learned what a roux was. And now I make a roux for everything. I do that for Alfredo sauce. I do that for the mac and cheese. It's just amazing what it can do. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get some of this plated up and we're gonna try it and see how we did. All right guys, so we have our finished lobster mac and cheese here. So let's see how we did. Gonna try and get a little piece of lobster in there. A little bit of pasta. All right, let's see. And the lobster is super tender and nice and sweet. The sauce, super flavorful. You can always play with the flavors if you want. Maybe add a little less salt, maybe a little more pepper, but overall, this came out really, really nice. And this is gonna be a great dish to have at family gatherings. I make it at Thanksgiving a lot for the family. And also if you have kids, this is an awesome mac and cheese. I was a nanny for years and the kids loved when I would make homemade mac and cheese. So thanks for tuning in with me, you guys. The recipe will be down in the comments. And then if you have any questions about anything in this recipe or any cooking questions in general, go ahead and throw them in the comments. We're all a community here. We're all gonna learn together. And if you have any tips and tricks, add those too. So again, thanks for tuning in. And remember, anyone can cook.